You know, as I was thinking about what I wanted to share this week, I kind of got stuck on something that happened a few weeks ago, and it just it's one of those things that when you go through it, you just kind of you wonder sometimes, right? So I was, as you guys know, every once in a while I go out and get with some guys. It's what I call my non-Christian day. So I get with non-Christians, okay, just to be with them and be in their life and them in my life. And so I was with these guys at a cigar shop, a month or two ago, and we were there fairly late. It was about 11:30 in the evening. And so we all just kind of decided it was time to head home. And just as we were kind of finishing up our conversation, this young girl came in the door. She was we found out she was 22 years old. She was a beautiful Hispanic young woman. And she was drunk completely out of her mind. And so she kind of came in and was kind of staggering around and being kind of flirtatious and all that kind of stuff. And I just felt so bad for her. And then one of the guys in particular took a particular interest in her. And when she went outside, he followed her and decided he wanted her to go with him to a hotel. And so I think it took him probably 30 minutes to finally convince her to get into his car and go to a hotel with him. If you're a parent, is that the kind of guy that you want your daughter to go out with? What do you think of that guy? What are your thoughts? Anybody? Scumbag. What else? Predator. Yes. Anyone else? Lonely. Yeah. Okay, so now I want to tell you a little bit more. The guy was me. So we were right. Yeah. Okay, so knowing that I was the guy, does it change your view of this person? For some of you, it does. Why would it change your view of that person when it's me? Because you know me and you know I'm not that kind of guy. See, a lot of times in life, what we have is limited information. And I find that as I walk more and more with the Lord, there's times where I just don't understand what He's doing. And so I tend to, at times, I will draw conclusions about Him that may or may not be true, based on the information that I have. For those that don't know God, they'll look at some of the things that go on in the world and they'll say, how could a loving God do this or allow that? And they'll conclude that either He's not loving or He doesn't even exist. You see, if I told you the rest of my story, a police officer came and the store had called and he came and he didn't want to send her to jail. And so somebody asked me to go outside because he had taken her outside. And he looked at me and he said, I hear you're a pastor. And I said, yes, I am. And he said, do we have any other options? I don't want to take her to jail. And I said, I know my church. And they're a very giving church. And I know they would be willing to put her up in a hotel for an evening. And it took me about a half hour to convince her to go to a hotel rather than to jail. The reason she got in my car was she wouldn't get into the officer's car. So the other information there is I got a police escort. So now when you know the rest of that, all of a sudden my conclusions are different, right? All of a sudden, see, everything I told you before was true. It was all true. Every single fact was true. But you didn't have all truth. And so that's one of the things I kind of want to look at today is is where is God when things don't seem to be going the way I think they should be going based on what I know about God? And that's kind of what I want to talk to you about today. I think sometimes we get stuck in some of our beliefs about God and some of our, what's the word I'm looking for, dogmatic stands that we take. And I think the older I get, I'm finding out that my dogmatic stands are being challenged more and more and more. Someone asked me recently, and I may have shared this with you, they said, this person believes this and this person believes this, which one's right? And my answer was, maybe both of them. See, because God's just that big. And so Carl's described God as if you're looking in the front window of a house, you're going to see one room. If you're looking in the back window of a house, you're going to see another room. They both look different, yet they're the same house. And so having an understanding of who God is very important. Life is full of twists and turns. And if I'm to be honest, God doesn't always meet me and meet my expectations the way I think that he should. There are just times that I'm not satisfied with the answers to my questions, the questions of how and why. He just seems to be silent for me. I feel like I too quickly settle for easy answers. Recently, a good friend of ours, a lot of you know him, his name is Eric Lyon. He was working out and his aortic artery burst. And as luck would have it, he's right across from a hospital. As luck would have it, the doctors for the heart surgery were already assembled for someone else, and that one got canceled, and so he was able to get in right away. And he's doing well. But I remember as I sat there through the 14-hour surgery with the family, one of them pulled me aside and said, "Why do you think God's doing this? Why do you think he's allowing this? Do you think he's just trying to get Eric's attention? Do you think?" And all of the thoughts that were going through her mind at the time. Sometimes there's just no easy answers. We want to be able to give them, and some of us honestly have it figured out. At least we think we do, but our answers don't seem to be sufficient when you're in the middle of the difficulty. So quickly we settle for those answers, and sometimes they're just not sufficient. So how do we make sense of things when they don't seem to make sense? One thing I find true of me is I don't do well with leaving things alone. And the things that don't seem to make sense. I'm not comfortable when things don't seem right to me. So when things don't make sense, when things seem contrary to what I believe they should be, when things seem wrong or unjust, my natural inclination is to bring understanding to the situation and then to make my thoughts known concerning my perceptions. So I will offer you my opinion based on my astute observations, my observations that have been processed through my incredible intellect. Yes, amen. And I will then bestow upon you the knowledge which I have greater than you and tell you exactly what God is doing in that moment, in that time, because he and I are really connected. But that's what we seem to do. We seem to come up with our opinions, we seem to come up with our answers to things, and we don't like to be challenged on them, and yet God seems to challenge them. So when things don't fit into our paradigm about who God is and how he moves, we come up with something that will make sense based on what we believe to be true. So I'll say that differently. We make something up. We do. We make something up about God. When they don't seem to make sense, we tend to come up with ideas that make them make sense. I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, this story of the man that was born blind in John 9, verses 1 through 7, I believe. Excuse me. It says, as he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? And Jesus answered, neither this man nor his parents sinned. But this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming, and when no one can work, while I am in the world, I am the light of the world. So that's a little beyond where I want to go. This man, no one sinned. This man was born blind because God wanted him to be born blind so that he could display his glory. It's a very simple answer that Jesus gave. Now, it doesn't feel good to me. It doesn't make sense to me, because now I want to challenge that. How could a loving God do that? And then what we try to do is we try to find scripture that would contradict that. And say, no, what Jesus was saying there was, and quite honestly, what Jesus was saying there was this. This happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. Nobody sinned. Nobody messed up. He was born blind because God made him blind so that his works would be displayed. Now, Jesus went ahead and healed him. But it's a real hard thing to understand. Remember when Moses, when God is asking Moses to do something, and he's like, going to lead my people, and Moses is going, whoa, God, come on, seriously. I'm a man slow of speech. Find somebody else. And God's comment to him was basically, who made man's mouth? Who can make him speak, or who can make him dumb? Is it not I? God has complete control, but it doesn't fit into my paradigm of who God is or who a loving God is. So what do I do with that kind of thing? I think we jump to conclusions. First of all, the first thing we do is we'll jump to conclusions about the person. Okay? Who made this man? Was this man born blind because of him? We jump to conclusions about people. Okay? So it appears that they formed this belief that, at least in this case, sin was involved when a bad thing happened. And we see this kind of belief system in the story of Job. Remember the story of Job? Job's friends were not able to understand the mystery of his suffering. So here's what one says. Think now, he says. Who that is innocent ever perish? Or where were the upright cut off? As I have seen, those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. In other words, he's saying, this has to be happening because you did something wrong. That's how he had to figure it. Another one of his great friends, and you got to love friends, says, see, God will not reject a blameless person nor take the hand of evildoers. And so he's saying, you're going through this because you've done evil. If you were blameless, he would receive you. If you hadn't messed up, then this wouldn't be happening to you. The third one says this, if iniquity is in your hand, put it far away. Don't let wickedness reside in your tents. Surely then you will lift up your face without blemish. You will be secure. You will not fear. Your life will be brighter than the noonday. So basically he's saying, look, if you repent of whatever it is that you've done, then God's going to lift you up. Was any of it true? No. Why was Job going through what he was going through? Because the devil himself went to God and said, and God points out Job and says, consider my servant, Job. And he goes, hey, the only reason he serves you, God, is because you've been so good to him. And so God says, have your way. The only thing you can't do is kill him. He wipes out his family, takes all of his riches, he does all of this stuff. And I'm going, what kind of a God allows that to happen? It makes no sense. And so when Job actually asked that question, what was God's response? Excuse me? Where were you when I created the earth? You questioned me? There's another time where we question, and it's in Romans. And Paul is talking about a particular subject, and people say, well, how does God still blame us? And he basically looks at me, and God's answer is, who are you to question me? So we don't understand. So there are things that God does that go way beyond our understanding. So the first thing we want to do is blame it on people. It wouldn't be so bad, you must have done something wrong, or you deserve this, or you go down the line. I mean, why do we conclude that people are out on the streets and they sleep on the streets and they don't have homes? Some people say, well, they're just lazy. Some people say other things. We make conclusions about people. That's the first thing we do. The second thing we do is we'll make conclusions about God. We'll say, God is mad at you, or we'll think, God must be mad at me, or we'll say, God doesn't care about me. And we start to draw conclusions about God. Why, if God loved me, then why? If God really cared, then why? Does he not see me? And so we start to draw conclusions about God and why things are happening to us. And I'm guessing that all of us have done it at some time in our life. Can I just tell you this about God? He loves you. He loves you with a love that you could never, ever begin to understand. He loves you. He doesn't turn his face from those who love him. He doesn't turn his face from you if you're trying to follow him. There are times that David would say things in the Psalms like, where are you? It seems like you've turned your face from me. But he always comes back to knowing that God loves him. And so when we want to make sense of what God is doing, it's really important to avoid blaming it on the person. It just is. Now, there are times, let's just say that I went out and murdered somebody and I got thrown in jail. You could blame that on me. Okay, I just definitely did that. But if all of a sudden I get sick or other things start to happen that just don't make sense in my life, hold off judgment on me for a while, unless God shows you something that you need to come and confront me with. So we draw conclusions about people, we draw conclusions about God. So what should we do when we don't understand? For me, these are the two pillars, one here and one there, that I absolutely hold on to when I'm not understanding what God is doing. The first one is he loves me, and he wants good for me. And no matter what I'm going through, I can hold on to this pillar that says, you love me. You love me. The second one is a pillar that says, you're in control. These are the two things for me whenever I'm going through a difficult time that I have to hold on to. First, okay, you love me. That's not in question. And the second is, I'm going through this because you're in control and you're allowing it for some reason. I don't get it. But you're in control. He's never out of control. There is nothing stronger than him. He created all things. He sustains all things. He is in control of every minute detail in your life. He's in control, even when it doesn't look good. I had somebody call me a few years back. They're going through a really difficult situation. It was with his spouse. And I said, hey, I feel like, and I prayed, and I said, I feel like God has a word for you. And he said, look, you're not talking me out of this. I said, I'm not even going to try and talk you out of it. I just feel like God has a word for you. And so we got together, and as we sat there, he explained all the reasons why he was. He says, I'm done. I said, okay, I get that. It's okay. He goes, what's your word? And I said, it may not make sense to you, but I feel like the Lord highlighted this to me, And that was the night of the Last Supper, the night that he was betrayed, he looked at Peter and he said, Simon, Simon, Satan has demanded this day that he be able to sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you that your faith will not fail. And when you return, go and strengthen your brothers. Jesus was saying to Peter, he was saying, look, Satan himself has gone to the throne room of God and said, I want him. He's demanded that he be able to sift you like wheat. But Jesus says, but I have prayed. Not that you won't fail, but that your faith will not fail. And when you return, here's the purpose. Go and strengthen your brothers. See, he had to go through something in order to help those who go through something. If you're going through something, it's not so much about you. It's all about him. Because he wants to use you. And if you will learn to wait on him, if you will learn, and here's the big word, to trust him. How can I trust him? Because I have two pillars. I have love and sovereignty, knowing he loves me, he's in control, and nothing, not a single thing can happen to me that hasn't passed through his hands and been given permission. Nothing. No matter what happens in my life, he has purpose. He has purpose for me. And he has purpose in that situation. And so how do we do it? We just go, Lord, I don't get it, but I love you. And I don't get it. It doesn't make sense. And it seems like a loving God would be this way, but I know you're sovereign. So I know that there's purpose in whatever it is that you allow me to go through. In whatever it is you allow me to go through. There's nothing that goes outside of his control. There's nothing too big for him. If there was, he wouldn't be God. If there was something stronger than him, he wouldn't be God. Do you get that? So I don't lean on my understanding. I love the Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. When I understand, I start with his love and his sovereignty, and then I come to a place of trust. And I love Proverbs when it says, and I quite honestly, it's becoming my favorite verse lately. I'm actually learning it really well. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. And listen to this next line. Don't lean on your understanding. Do you hear that? Stop for a minute and listen to that. Trust in the Lord with everything in you. No matter what the situation looks like, no matter what you think it should look like, trust in the Lord with all your heart and don't lean on your own understanding. In all of your ways, submit to him. In other words, if he asks you to do something, do it. Even if you disagree with him, do it. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, in all of your ways, submit to him. And it says, and he will make straight your path. Trust requires me to believe in the love and sovereignty of God and not put so much weight on my own understanding. It requires me to believe in him with all of my heart, though I don't understand it. If you ask me certain questions, you'll get this answer from me. I don't know. Don't understand. I wish I was all-knowing and I understood all things. I don't. But I trust him. So when I don't know, what you'll hear from me is, trust him. Just trust him. See what happens. Why can we trust him? Because he's good. In all our ways, if we acknowledge him, he will make our path straight. In other words, this is what it's going to look like. You're going through life and it looks like you're going here and here and here and here and there. And it's like you're just like a pinball machine. Some of you guys don't know what that is. But you're just getting bounced all over. When the writer of Proverbs said this, he says, he will make straight your path. What will happen is you're going to get to a place, and then you can look back and you can go, oh, that led to that, led to that. It's a straight path. I love that. As I was thinking about this week and praying, and I just started crying because I think of Kelly. Because I bounced to California, then I bounced to Portland, Oregon, then I bounced to Oklahoma, and I knew God was leading me to Oklahoma. And you know what happened? I met Kelly.
Wow.
And then I met my daughter. And I was just thinking this week, who would have thought God brought Kelly and I together? Not only was he bouncing me around, Kelly was living her life over here, and then we meet. And had I not done all my bouncing, had I not gone to Oklahoma, and really I was trying to follow him, I would have never met my wife. The greatest thing to ever happen to me. And had my daughter. I can't believe it. So I look back at my path, and it goes, he made straight my path. I can see every step along the way and the difficulties along the way that led me to that place. He will make straight your path. Okay, I'm going to conclude. Hebrews 12 has become literally, it is my favorite passage. Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance. Look at these next words. The race marked out for us. What? This life that you're living, this bouncing around that you're doing, this, oh my goodness, where am I going? Keep running, because he's marked out your race for you. Every twist, every turn, every hurdle, every rock, every obstacle, he's placed. He has placed. He marked it out for you. Why? Oh, that's so cool. Why? He says, first of all, fix your eyes on Jesus. He's the author or the pioneer and the perfecter of your faith. So he says, listen, you got this race that I've marked out for you. Just keep focused on me. Trust me. Trust me. That's what it says. Keep your eyes on me. Trust me. Why? Because in the race, I'm perfecting your faith. In the race, if you will trust me, if you will look to me, if you will find me, it will change you. The obstacles are there to bring you to a place of great purpose for him. And the obstacles are there to bring you up to a place of greater faith. He began this work in you. You didn't. And so if he began it, he says, I'm going to complete it. Just get your eyes on me, run the race, and keep going. Trust me, you'll be okay. That's such a good word. It's such a good word. He's the author, he's the finisher. Many of life's difficulties, let me rephrase that. Life's difficulties are by design, if I believe Scripture. They're by design. I don't understand them. I wish I could. But I'm not going to stand up here and make something up just so it agrees with my dogmatic beliefs. When I talked 2 weeks ago, we talked about Paul saying, I've taught you the whole counsel of God. This is one of those things I think Paul took time to talk about. He said, look, you may not understand God all the time. That's okay. Just know this. He loves you. He's in control. If you hold on to those two things and you keep running, you're going to make it. You can trust him no matter what the case may be. Though I don't understand, I know this. He's working out his purpose in me and for me. He's forming me in the difficult times. When I look back on my life, the most formative times of my life were the times that were most difficult. I never want to go through them again, but I'm so glad I did, because I found him in that place. And he revealed something new to me in that place. And he changed me in that place. And I'll never be the same again because of that place. He's working for your good, no matter what your situation. I'm not asking you to understand. You can't. I'm asking you to trust him. And if you do, he will make straight your path. You'll be able to look back and say, wow, that's why that happened. That's why I went through that. He loves me. He's in control. And there's nothing more I need to know to be able to trust him. I love the word that you gave this morning, Kathy, about the Jetty, because this is what we're talking about. When you start your walk with Christ, you're kind of walking along this path and going, this is pretty cool. And the further you get out to the Jetty, it's like, wait a minute. This one, okay, I can do this. I got this. Yeah, I'm good. And then you get further out, and they're like big rocks. And it's going to take me literally letting my feet leave the ground and hope that I land on that other rock. And that's the walk we face. It was such a good word. And so as you follow Christ, some of you are on the path, and that's cool. And some of you are beginning to learn how to trust God with those little leaps. I just want you to know, and guys, if you're going to sing a song, come on up. I'm not going to do an altar call, but we're going to sing a song in closing. You're not going through difficulty just because God's having fun with you. Hey, let's put this guy in a tailspin. Look at that. Whoa, what's he going to do? He just doesn't take enjoyment over that. He really doesn't. God is a God that absolutely loves you and has purpose for you. And so if you're going through difficulty, watch where he takes you. But you see, here's what it takes. Obey him. Whatever he asks you to do, do it. Do it. Don't say, I'm not going to because it doesn't make sense. If you want to say that, you will go through it again. And you'll go through it and go through it and go through it because God loves you. He loves you. And he wants you to know him. He wants you to know his ways, not just his works. Don, understand who I am. Understand my ways. Though you don't understand why I'm doing what I'm doing, know that I'm doing it because I love you and I have purpose for you. So some of you are here, honestly, that don't understand why you're going through what you're going through today. Some of you are going through some really heavy stuff today, okay? And it just doesn't make any sense to you, and it doesn't make sense that a loving God would allow it. If you need prayer, the prayer team will be up here. If you're going through things today and you're having a hard time trusting, I encourage you to come up and get prayer. Because one of the ways, really, that we can gain strength is by leaning on each other. Not that they're going to have the answers for you, but they can pray for you, they can care for you, and be with you and help you through the difficult times.